I'm Sriloka Iyer, a student of the third year of MBBS, and I'm extremely privileged to be in the company of a multi-talented personality, His Grace Shubha Vilas, who is currently the author to national bestsellers. Defying his external garb, he has a Bachelor of Engineering degree in Electronics and Telecommunication, along with a degree in law, specializing in intellectual property law. After a successful career of working with reputed firms like the Tata Group and the international law firm in Bangalore, he joined the institution of IISC, and since then, he has donned on various hats. From being a motivational speaker and addressing students all across the country to globe-trotting and addressing people all across the world to becoming a national best-selling author to the series called Ramayana, The Game of Life, he has quite a unique career graph, straying away from all that is ordinary. So what more can the youth ask for? So presenting to you the adventurous, cool monk, Shubha Vilas. So I'm so grateful to be here, and there are lots of questions that I'd like to ask you. So from being an engineer to a lawyer, to a monk, and now to one of India's best-selling authors, you've had quite a journey. Am I allowed to ask how old you are?
Thank you for this question. I am 35 at this point of time.
Wow, so you've achieved so much in quite a short time, which is quite something. So can I ask you what inspired you to take such an apparent retro step in the 21st century? You seem like a chaser of dreams. How would you describe this journey to becoming a super successful monk writer?
Essentially, when I was working as a lawyer and a technical person in a law firm, I asked myself some very important questions. The question that I asked myself was that, do I want to really make life just colorful, or do I want to make my life valuable? I asked myself the question that, do I really want to live a life of taking, or do I really want to live a life of giving? And I realized that I personally experience greater joy in giving than in taking. And that's when I started looking for an option where I would like to have an opportunity to really serve society in a greater way. From my younger days, what I realized is that I derive a great joy in doing something different every day. So I was looking for a career that actually gives me something different on a daily basis. And that's when I shifted from engineering to law, because patent law gave me an experience of every single day dealing with different challenges, different patents, different learnings. But then I realized even that was not enough. I really needed a career, an opportunity where I could do something so different, not just from the point of view of my satisfaction, but which can actually tangibly contribute something to society also. All of us appreciate the army when men sacrifice their valuable careers, actually their families, so that to protect the borders of the country. We really appreciate such people's sacrifices. Such people, the army protects the borders of the country, but we also need an army that protects the culture of the country. So I decided to join the army that protects the culture of the country, because at this point of time, the culture of India is in a crisis, and we don't have too many soldiers protecting the culture of the country. That explains my change.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for an answer where you've shown us how you followed your passions and your dreams, and at the same time you managed to selflessly serve society. Thank you. So from generations that believed blindly, and now quite frankly disbelieve, we have quite a transition there. The youths today, with all their zest, are looking for answers and proof to back up these belief systems. So how are we to draw inspiration from this epic that occurred like gazillions of years ago? How is it even relevant today?
My understanding is that the Ramayana and the Mahabharata, which have occurred long back, The story may be old, but the principles that the story represents is fresh. It's timeless. And therefore, even though there are millions of books written every single day and so many novels brought out every single day, the attraction to the Mahabharata and Ramayana has always remained. The Ramayana and Mahabharata are like rivers, the Ganga and the Yamuna, which flow freely and who have been flowing for thousands of years today. But actually, if you look at the way in which Ramayana and Mahabharata have been written, underlying the storyline are deep principles, lessons and values that human beings are meant to learn. Unfortunately, today, the stories are available, but the principles that the stories represent are missing. I always give this example of Prayag, which is a Triveni Sangam, the combination of Ganga, Yamuna and Saraswati, where the three rivers meet. We always find the Ganga and Yamuna visible, but we find that the Saraswati is called a Gupta Nadi, it's an invisible river. That's the principle that the Ramayana and Mahabharata represent. Ramayana and Mahabharata are like the Ganga and Yamuna flowing freely, but the wisdom, the Saraswati, the education that is hidden within these scriptures is invisible. And these hidden lessons are what make the Ramayana and Mahabharata so relevant today. So what I'm trying to do is trying to bring out the relevance of these epics in a way that contemporary youngsters, contemporary people can really apply in their lives. I'll share one small story from the Ramayana which can really help you understand this better. It is explained that when Ram was in Ayodhya, he would spend a lot of time with the citizens of Ayodhya. He would actually travel around, meet people, and the most amazing part of this story is that when Ram would go and spend time with people, he would actually laugh with them, cry with them. In fact, the people of Ayodhya would be so surprised that when Ram is participating in somebody's joy, he would be more happy than the family members. And when Ram would be sharing somebody's sorrows, he would actually cry more than the family members. The interesting part in this story is to note that Ram would cry with the family members. What does it mean to us? It essentially means that when we say Ram would cry with the family members, it meant he wouldn't solve their problems. He would just cry along with them. So the Ramayana is trying to show us that not all problems in life have solutions. Most problems in life have to be tolerated. Some problems in life have to be neglected. And very few problems actually have solutions. But when we go through a crisis in our personal life, when we go through a problem in our personal life, what we really need is someone who can understand our problem and cry along with us. We don't need people who solve our problems, because as I said, not all problems are meant to be solved.
So I think all we're looking for in most situations in life is a shoulder to cry on. And Lord Ram, with all of his luster and all of his beauty and grace, he actually was there for people. So thank you for the wonderful insight, Prabhu. We, the youth, we believe in problems, seeking solutions for our problems right here, right now. It's not like all problems have a solution, and it makes a lot of sense to wait. So, thank you. Moving on to the next question. I really have this question in mind, Prabhu. Like from demands of gender equality to racial equality, the youth have an opinion and believe in standing up for the right. From the Ramayana, seeing Lord Ram's life, it seems he tolerated a lot of injustice. It seems like he never really stood up much for himself. So firstly, I'd like to ask you why he never stood up for himself. And when he was banished or sent into exile, he just accepted it and moved on. So how can we assimilate that? How can we assimilate that nature to his character?
My understanding of Lord Ram's personality is that whenever we go through difficulties in life, there are two ways to deal with difficulties. The first way to deal with difficulty is that you jump into them, muddle around with them, try to somehow or the other solve them, deal with all negativity and come out with a solution. The second way to deal with the difficulty or solutions or difficulties, especially those difficulties that are not really in your control. We often go through problems in life where the solutions to those problems don't lie in our hands. What Ram did is the second approach. When an eagle is being attacked by a set of crows, an eagle is a much more powerful bird. But when crows attack the set of the eagle never fights back. But rather, the eagle soars higher. It soars so high that it doesn't really, it's out of the reach of the crows. This is the approach that Lord Ram took up. When he was told to go on exile for 14 years, he looked at the exile period of 14 years not as a punishment, but as 14 years as an opportunity for him to go and learn from the sages in the forest. Basically, he looked at 14 years as 14 years of upgradation. So, instead of trying to solve them and muddle around the negativity of Ayodhya, the political situation of Ayodhya, he just looked at the problem from a different perspective. And the second understanding of why Ram did that is a concept of leadership. Before being an ideal leader, he showed the world what it means to be an ideal follower. 14 years, he acted as an ideal follower. The king of Ayodhya banished him. And then, as an ideal follower, he followed the instructions of the king without any argument. And then when he came back after 14 years and he assumed the role of a king, he acted as an ideal king. Because he already had shown people what it means to be an ideal follower. That's my understanding of why Ram took up the negativity that was thrown on him and how he took it up.
Right. So, we really learned a lesson about how changing our perspective in situations helps us go a long way. How Lord Ram actually changed his perspective, and that helped him soar over those 14 years in exile. So that was really insightful. Thank you, Prabhu. And secondly, I'd also like to ask you, how did he manage to banish his beloved wife after the whole ordeal of Ramayana, after the battle had been fought? It's something that is so difficult to understand. And can you throw some light on that?
So, to help you answer and understand this question, let me tell you a multiple optioned way of approaching it or understanding it. First, I'll like to tell you a situation, a life situation, which you say what you would do if you're put in that role. There is a boy who's got a job in America, and he is just shifted from India to America, settled down for a few days. He just got married, new family, new responsibilities, new job, new country. And more than that, he's financially very, very unstable. This job is actually what is going to stabilize him financially and make sure he takes care of his wife. When he reaches in such a situation, he gets a call from India saying that his mother is dying. And he has to desperately and immediately come back to India. So his boss tells him that if he leaves to India, he'll lose his job. Now in such a situation, what is he supposed to do? What is right? Should he go back to India, take care of his dying mother, or should we be there in America, take care of his job and provide for his family? What do you think is the right thing to do?
You've put me in quite a fix, Prabhu. When there's a challenge between an emotional situation and a condition where you have to maintain your stand. If he leaves his job, he's going to lose his career, which is not going to make his mother happy any which ways. So I think maybe he should stay back, work in America, and
now
continue maintaining his...
Whatever you say, somebody will say that's not right. If you say he should go back to his mother, some people will say what a person is irresponsible towards his wife. If he stays back with his wife, he will say what a person is ungrateful to his mother. So the question is, there are some dilemmas in life that don't have a black and white solution. There are some dilemmas in life, if you are put in, whatever you do is right. Because it's your call. Because it's your situation. And somebody who is not exactly in your position, your shoes, will never be able to fathom why you took a particular decision, because they will never be able to fathom the pressure that you are in and the thought process that you are going to have in that situation. So Ram was in such a dilemma in his life, and he took a decision. Now, we sitting externally from, after so many years, we can easily point out and, show so many errors that he has done in his decision making. But as I said, it was his call. Now, I know that that's not a complete answer. Let me give you more perspectives that may help you understand the situation in a completeness. I'm giving you a scenario of today. 2 countries and 2 leaders. Here is one leader, I'm not going to take names, but I'm sure you'll understand whom I'm speaking about, who has sacrificed his family, sacrificed his responsibility towards his wife, doesn't really meet his mother, doesn't really take care of his brothers, and he is living a life for the country. So completely sacrifice his family for the sake of the nation. And there's another country where there's a president who has 6 wives, and he has made huge palaces for all his 6 wives, and is taking excellent care of them at the cost of the nation. So now, which leader do you prefer? Do you prefer a leader who takes care of his family and sacrifices the country? Or do you like a leader who sacrifices the country for the sake of his family? Either ways, people will criticize.
Yes.
So if you talk about a leader who has sacrificed his family for the country, they'll say what a irresponsible leader he is.
Yes.
And if there is a leader who sacrifices the country for the sake of the family, he'll say what an irresponsible leader he is.
Yes.
So essentially, in my understanding, what is leadership? Leadership essentially means responsibility. Responsibility means sacrifices, and sacrifices means crying. Ramayana is a book of leadership. Ramayana is a book of leadership, which essentially means it's a book of responsibility. It essentially means it's a book of sacrifices, and it essentially means that the leader is going to cry. The country where a leader cries, the followers will be happy, and the country where the leader laughs, the followers will have to cry. So the choice is ours. But unfortunately, we are in such a situation that whatever leader does, we tend to criticize that person. Whether he does this or whether he does this. That's the sad part of being a leader. You get criticized heavily for whatever you do. The third perspective of understanding this whole situation is Sita's perspective. Most people who go through divorce cases, if you study divorce cases, and especially the kids who are caught up in a divorce case, where the father or the mother, one of them possesses the kid, one of them, get to have the kid with them. The general understanding is that, general experience is that, what we have seen, the child begins to hate the other person. If the child is staying with the mother poisons the child so much, speaks so much negativity about the father, that the child develops a natural hatred towards the father. And if the child is with the father, he develops a natural hatred towards the mother. But look at the Ramayana. Here is Lava and Kush, the sons of Ram and Sita. So Sita raised them up. But if she really had hatred towards her husband, her hatred towards Ram, she would have put in that hatred into her children. But the fact is that if you study the Ramayana, Lava and Kush grew up with great love, respect and veneration for Ram. And therefore, you'll find them being the first narrators of the Ramayana. Valmiki trained them to be the first narrators of the Ramayana, and they did a fantastic job of narrating the Ramayana with great love, great emotions, which actually shows that they had no hatred for their father. Essentially, the way in which Sita trained their children is from the point of view of playing 2 roles. Sita simultaneously was a queen of Ayodhya and simultaneously was the wife of Lord Ram. As a wife, she was hurt by the decision that Ram took. But as a queen, she very well knew that the decision that Ram took was right. Because as I said, the responsibility of leading is not just the kings but also the queens. And therefore, being a queen, Sita understood the situation in which Ram was. And therefore, she understood that the decision that Ram made in that particular situation was right. And therefore, she never developed hatred towards Ram, and she didn't instill that hatred towards Ram into her children also. And another perspective, which is a very historical, or rather a perspective about a previous history of Ram, is that Many yugas back, there was a sage whose name was Bhrigu Muni. Bhrigu Muni had a wife. His wife's name was Khyati. So Khyati was, though she was the wife of Bhrigu, and Bhrigu was the guru of the devatas, the demigods, Khyati would indirectly supply the powers of Bhrigu's sacrifices to the demons, to the Rakshasas. And because she would do that, the Rakshasas were becoming even more powerful, and they were creating a huge amount of turbulence and negativity in the world. And to stop that, Lord Vishnu, he appeared and he killed Khyati, the wife of Bhrigu. And because Bhrigu was so hurt by the fact that his wife was killed by Vishnu, he cursed Vishnu that just like I am suffering from this some separation from my wife, in one incarnation you will also suffer from separation from your wife. And that curse of Bhrigu came into play in the Ramayana. And Lord Ram, he had to experience separation from his wife for a considerable period of time because of that curse. Whenever you do something good for somebody, remember that generally people who do good tend to have repercussions in their personal lives. Doing good is always a sacrifice. Doing good need not always bring you pleasure immediately. And therefore, it's not always easy to do good. Therefore, it's not always easy to lead. Most people stay away from leadership because leadership is all about crying. Therefore, the entire Ramayana is based on a rasa which is known as Karuna Ras. Karuna Ras means the mellow of compassion, the mellow of sacrificing your personal comforts for the sake of society. And whenever a leader has to do that, his personal life is not always going to be easy and joyful. That's my understanding of why Ram did this.
That was a wonderful, thought-provoking explanation to the entire situation, and it gives us so many cues as youth who want to lead the nation and the world tomorrow. There's so much that we can learn from this ancient text of Ramayana. Thank you. So, being a student of medicine, I'd like to bring this topic up next. So, the theme for the WHO, the World Health Organization this year, is about depression, and let's talk about it. So, as a student, I see a general trend where there's this rise in the number of psychiatric cases that are being presented. It seems that life has put these people through so many trials and tribulations that the very essence of living is being lost. We are producing a generation of people that are woebegone and easily depressed. So, do the ancient texts have a solution to this problem?
I would like to speak a little bit about what the concept of depression is to begin with. According to me, depression is the greatest form of selfishness. A depressed person is a highly selfish person because a depressed person cannot think about anything and anybody beyond himself or herself. The test for finding out if a person is really depressed is ask that person to do something selfless, to either do some charitable thing or to go and do some service somewhere. I'll tell you, the way they would answer is, how can I help somebody when I myself need help? Which essentially means they've gone into a shell of self-pity, a shell of, self-awareness in the wrong way. In essence, a person who is depressed is like somebody who is drowning in a quicksand. When somebody is drowning in a quicksand, a drowning man cannot help another drowning man to come out of the quicksand. You need somebody who is on stable grounds to be able to pull you out. The Bhagavad Gita begins with this concept. The Bhagavad Gita begins with Arjun analyzing his own life. And because Arjun is analyzing his life so complicatedly in a very selfish way, he goes into an intense state of depression. In fact, if you look at all the symptoms that Arjuna exhibits in the first chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, it's all symptoms of stress and depression. And at the end of such an exhibition, Arjuna realizes, I can't help myself. That's when he approaches Krishna. The Bhagavad Gita begins with a very interesting introduction to Krishna. It says, Prahasan iva Bharata, which essentially means that Krishna was smiling. Only a smiling Krishna can help a crying Arjun. Today, people are having smiling faces but crying hearts. Externally, if you ask them, everything is perfectly fine. But internally, you just scratch the surface a little bit and you'll find there is a whole lot of negativity within them. And therefore, it is very important to know that before you actually find solutions to your highly complicated negative phase, you need somebody whom you can have confidence to be able to guide you rightly. A man went to a psychiatrist and he asked him, he said, I feel like committing suicide, what do I do? The psychiatrist told him that I will give you a solution which is really wonderful. He said, I will not give you medicines, but I will tell you what I do whenever I feel like committing suicide. Can you imagine? Somebody who is feeling like committing suicide, how can he help somebody else who is in the same situation? The psychiatrist told him, whenever I feel depressed, I go to a circus. And in the circus, there's a clown. Whenever I watch the act of this clown, I completely forget my depression, I completely forget my anxieties. I come back a fresh person. This man who had come, he said, I am that clown in that circus. Can you imagine? So he's making everyone laugh, but who's going to make him laugh? Today, the world needs people who are standing on ground to help people who are drowning in the quicksand out. And only a person in knowledge, not from a theoretical point of view, but from a practical point of view, can actually help a person come out of the quicksand. According to me, the most important solution for depression is selfless service. If every day, if you do something selfless for somebody else, there is no way you yourself are going to be depressed. Because depression is all about thinking about your own needs, interests and concerns. And selflessness is all about thinking about others' needs, interests and concerns. And therefore, it is very important to come out of our shell. Especially youngsters today, they are so much into their own small shell of thinking about their own needs, interests and concerns that they are never really bothering about the rest of the world. And therefore, depression is most common.
That indeed was a very well thought way of presenting the entire situation. So, wow, Prabhuji, that was indeed a very deep thought. All this while, I thought depression was about me and finding out what hurt me and how I had to fight and come out of it. After having spoken about belief systems and so on and so forth, I'd like to ask a question that concerns the core need of the youth today. We seem to have a generation of individuals that have crumbling self-confidence and self-esteem, but with flourishing Facebook and Instagram feeds. The youth today definitely seems to be facing a problem of an identity crisis. So do you have the prescription that contributes to building up complete individuals instead of just virtual celebrities?
Thank you for the good question. My understanding of self-rating is very interesting. I'll begin with a story from the Mahabharata, which actually shows about how this whole mood of likes and dislikes that we all are so familiar with on Facebook and Instagram and all these social media sites is existing right from beginning. Karna in the Mahabharata was one such person who believed a lot in others' rating to determine his own self-rating. In the Mahabharata, just before the war, there was a meeting where all the generals of the Kaurava army got together and Bhishma was the commander-in-chief, was rating them according to their capacities and abilities. So he gave different people different ratings. Somebody was called a Maharati, somebody was called a Rathi and so on and so forth. When it came to Karna, Bhishma called him a Ardharathi. Ardharathi means half a warrior. That means technically he is not even capable of killing one person properly. So now for Karna, who was considered to be as powerful as Arjun, a Maharati, one of the best warriors in the war, being given such a bad self-rating was really hurtful. So Karna was angry to the core. He blasted on Bhishma and asked him, what nonsense, how can you give me such a bad rating? And Bhishma justified. Bhishma explained that Karna had a curse on his head from his own guru Parashuram, who cursed him that when he needs the knowledge the most, at that time he will completely forget the knowledge. Which essentially means when a warrior cannot perform at the most important time of his need, then what's the use of being such a warrior? So therefore Bhishma justified saying that this is why I'm going to name Ardharathi, because you're useless when you're needed the most. Karna couldn't handle it. He actually took a vow that till Bhishma is alive, he will not enter the war. So for most people in this world, their consciousness or their understanding of likes and dislikes is very much like Karna. When somebody gives a like, they feel that they are great. When somebody gives them a dislike, they feel that they are useless. So for youngsters today, others' likes and dislikes determine their own self-image, determine the way they see themselves. But the fact is that if you analyze the world, you see that the most famous people in the world who have really touched people's hearts are not the people who are the most beautiful on an external level. Today, youngsters are so much concerned about what others think about them, the way they look, the way they are dressed, their hairstyle, the gadgets that they own and all that.
Definitely.
So essentially, if you look at the world today, most of the most famous people who have contributed something substantial, you look at them, they are not the most beautiful looking people. Yes. You take the example of Nelson Mandela, you take the example of Mahatma Gandhi, you take the example of Veer Savarkar, you take the example of so many of the people in the past who have something substantial to contribute to society. They themselves, externally, were not the most beautiful people. But they stood for what they believed in, and more than that, they focused on contribution than their self-rating. And because they focused on contribution, when they did something valuable, everybody looked at them and appreciated them. But if they had to just focus on how they looked and their self-image depended on that, they wouldn't probably be able to focus on their contribution at all. So therefore today, what youngsters have to really think, instead of focusing on how others rate them in terms of the externals, you need to focus on how you rate yourself in terms of the contribution. And if you are really doing something substantial in terms of contribution to society, you don't really need to bother about others' rating of you, because others' rating will change. That's my understanding of how we deal with our own self-image.
So right. So basically, I think Prabhuji, you're trying to tell us how it's so important to be beautiful at soul level, to be selfless individuals that go out and serve. And that's what should contribute to our image of beauty rather than all the externals. So thank you so much. So thank you, Prabhu, for inspiring us in your own unique way. And we're so grateful to have you here today.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be with you and happy to serve all of you. Thank you.
That was quite an enthralling session, drawing lessons from an ancient past to tackle real-world and virtual issues. I feel so grateful and glad to have met such a person who's contributing to the world in his own unique way and inspiring generations and leaving so much wisdom behind in his books. So I hope this inspires us to go deeper to our roots and become wonderful, selfless human beings. Also, he's the author of a number of books. He has written the series of books called Ramayana, The Game of Life, and his latest book called The Open-Eyed Meditations. So you can get your copies at Amazon Bookstore, or you can visit any of the leading bookstores across the country. And if you really like this video, hear more from us, like, subscribe and share, and don't forget to leave your comments behind in the comment section. So you can follow this super cool monk on his Facebook page, facebook.com/Shubha Vilas, and his Twitter page, twitter.com/Shubha Vilas. Thank you.